Okay. Hi, Irene.
Hi, Lisbeth.
Yeah, we've known each other now for how long?
I think
6 years?
5, 6, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah. So you started working here 5 or 6 years ago, and well, we thought it was a good idea to present you a little bit to my public, to your public. How do we work together? What type of work do you offer? So go ahead, tell me, what is it that you do? You work in OV, even this holistic health center that we created in a way together. Could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got there and what are you doing?
Sure. Okay. So maybe I say a little bit about my background because it's relevant. So I actually studied international human rights law, and I was working in the international human rights sector. And then really when I was quite early, I had some kind of like burnout-y crisis, which I think happens to so many of us, and I really think that crisis can be a real opportunity that kind of like propels us to new grounds and new avenues in life. And this is literally what happened to me. So in the beginning, I was having these like burnouty feelings, I was feeling dizzy all the time. I couldn't sleep anymore. I had terrible insomnia, I had anxiety, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And so what I did at the time was to study shiatsu. So I went to a professional shiatsu school in the UK. I was living and studying in the UK in London. And shiatsu is the Japanese art of acupressure. So it's based on traditional Chinese medicine. And I went to professional school and initially studied shiatsu as a hobby because I just thought it was fascinating. And I used it to heal myself. So I used everything that I was learning for myself. And then as I had completed the study, so it's a 3-year study, it's very thorough, very complete, I was just transfixed. I mean, I just loved it. I had been introduced to traditional Chinese medicine and this whole holistic realm or world of healing. And I thought it was profound and fascinating. And so from there, I went on to do like a professional coaching course in Berlin. And I studied the emotional freedom technique, which consists in tapping acupuncture points on your face and on your upper body in order to change emotions, in order to take away stress and anxiety and all heavy emotions. And well, voila. And so like bit by bit in the beginning, I was still working in the international human rights sector, but then I slowly changed towards working in the healing arts because I think healing has everything to do with honesty. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest about your life. And it just provided a space and a realm in which, I could work at that degree of honesty.
Thank you. You're doing something called family constellations as well. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I've done that 2 or 3 years ago, and I found it very, very interesting. And it has helped me a lot back then when I discovered that I actually had a twin when I was when my mother was pregnant of me, which explained a lot of things afterwards in my life. And that's the way I discovered family constellations. So you're doing that as well, no?
Yeah, I also work with systemic constellations. So it's called family constellation. I prefer to call it systemic constellations because it makes it broader. You don't only work with a family. You can of course work with your family. You can also work with aspects. Your sadness, your fatigue, disappointment, whatever it is, or people in your workplace and other. Okay, so systemic constellations are something deeply fascinating. Both complex and simple at the same time, and almost impossible to explain.
People should try it out.
So basically, you explain the problem that you have, and then there are 2 ways of working. Either you work with a group of people, or you can also work individually with different plaquettes, as we say in French, with different anchors that we put onto the floor and then stand on to kind of like feel into the energy of different aspects. So basically in systemic constellations, you pick different people of your system or different aspects of the problem you would like to work with, position them in the room, and like this you already have a first insight into how these different parts of you relate to one another. And then we can say healing sentences to those different parts and try to restore a system that in some way has been disrupted or affected in some way.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
It's one of these things. So many people say to me before they've tried it, well, will I feel something? You know, is it going to work for me? And once they're in the constellation, everyone is blown away. I have never met anyone who could not feel something in a constellation. That's probably the part I love the most, is that it connects us to our feeling part. It connects us to our intuition and to a different way of knowing things.
It almost feels a bit like magic to me. When I did it, I was like, this is just not possible, the way it resonates, the way the person that is like incarnating your mother or your sister or your brother is actually saying things and showing things that are actually so right. It's almost incomprehensible. So that's why for me it feels like some sort of magic.
It is incomprehensible, and it still could not be explained. So mirror neurons do not explain it. The quantum field does not explain it. So we still haven't. We don't have answers for how it works, but it works.
But it works. Yeah.
You just have to try it. Yeah.
Okay. I think today it would be nice to talk a little bit more about EFT, because of the fact that we have a lot of discussions, the two of us together. We had this idea to record a little part of this today, because there is something that both of us agree on, that we've seen more and more frequently in the last 2 years, that have been like extremely challenging for a lot of people. From my side as a doctor, I'm confronted a lot with people with long COVID, post-COVID problems with their health. People are getting more and more chronically ill, vaccination injuries, people that are having none of those, but feel that those 2 years have put them in a and then I'm talking about people that are already in a process of what we call in our conversations awakening, that have a spiritual connection and that feel in a certain way alienated from how society is evolving now from this moment. And we've talked a lot about this. I've seen it in my patients, how people have difficulties now relating to others, how they become more and more isolated. If you put on top of that being sick with some kind of chronic disease now, which is the case for a lot of people, our immune systems are all compromised after 1, 2, or 3 COVID infections or 1, 2, or 3 vaccinations. A lot of people don't feel the way they felt before. And how do you see this in your practice?
Yeah, so while I think that you deal more with perhaps like the physical manifestation of these, well, how to call that, of how people are being affected, like my job is really the emotional side, right? And of course, I see people left, right, and center. I see people experiencing despair, loneliness, alienation, and just really just kind of wondering what this is all about. And next to just the habitual stress and high pressure environments and high pressure jobs, you know, I mean, it is full on. It's really full on what's going on. And I think it's extremely valuable and extremely valid to talk about it, because at least like this, maybe people feel a little bit less alone with it. And just so that everyone knows that everyone's in the same boat, you know, and I mean, as you said, like we have these conversations, you know, which I find very, very precious, that the only way out is in, you know, like, I mean, everyone is being called, at least to my understanding, to engage with a deeper journey into the inner realms, you know, into the inner world, and explore what's there and find and build an anchor in there. So as you were mentioning EFT, the emotional freedom technique, it consists in tapping acupuncture points in order to change heavy emotions. And what I always say, I often give these like collective workshops. Also throughout the lockdowns, I gave many workshops for free online, you know, just to help people keep their morale. But really the thing we have to work on and build on is this inner anchor. You know, it's like strengthening our inner world and have daily practices that nourish us and that guide us, because we can't control life. You know, life is bigger than us, and to think that we can control it is just an illusion. And so the only thing we can do is to grow this inner anchor.
Mhm. Yeah, we've talked about, and that's something we observed even in ourselves, I think, recently, and that we see a lot in our patients as well, is this shift from an energy. And then I want to say something about all the long COVID patients that I see, but probably it's broader than only the long COVID people. But what I do see is that a lot of people women that, not only women, but it's a lot of the people that I see are women, that get these chronic diseases now, and that are dealing with all this kind of feelings that you just described, were women that were the warrior types. So the types that were like type A personality, very hyperactive, very often women or men that had difficulty saying no, that put needs of others before their own needs, empaths, people who feel a lot, people who are maybe not, or have not been trained to be so much in tune with what they feel, and then go into hyper doing, to not having to feel all these difficult emotions all the time, which is a very feminine type of energy. And I think it's interesting to see how even you and me, who are extremely active and extremely project oriented before, are going through this period of, my God, I'm a bit like, I feel a bit like in a no man's land. I feel like relaxing, like not doing too much. And I've seen this with my patients. And I feel that maybe, well, it's what we said, it would be interesting to do, or to start a little series on EFT to help people go through this period where you feel like as if you've been slammed against the wall. And if you recognize yourself in this type of personality, where before you were always very active and hyperactive and doing stuff and having 100,000 projects, and you feel yourself like slammed against the wall and you don't really feel like seeing people or going out or doing stuff, that maybe this is something that is needed for us to go more into a gentler, more feminine, more receptive way of being. And yeah, I don't know what your feelings are about this.
I how can I say this? I think that's the general shift that's going on. I think well, if we look at it in terminology of traditional Chinese medicine, you have the yin and the yang, and the yang is the male, the outgoing, the doing, the strategy, you know, the power, the money, and so on. We've had enough of that in our world, and it has caused the destruction that we are now witnessing. And the shift is towards the feminine. That's the only way we're going to get out of this mess, both on the personal level as well as on the global level. So yes, I think it's happening, and I think part of the chronic illness and all these crises we're seeing is just like a global calling, whether we like it or not, you know, towards a more female polarity, both in men as in women, you know, in absolutely everyone, to kind of be in a more receptive and more gentle mode, you know.
And it's not always easy. So I wanted to say to the people that are listening that everybody is struggling with this same thing. And when I got my long COVID, I in my mind, it was very clear that it was going to take 3 years. It's been 2 years now. And now I start to feel more acceptance, more slowness, more slowing down. And I think for everybody out there that is going through the same thing, it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And you have to, in a way, try to surrender to the process and be able to say to yourself that everything that is happening, in a way, is right and is normal. So I think the EFT that Irene is going to show is going to be about trust. How did we want to call it?
Keeping the faith no matter what.
Okay. No matter what. Exactly. I think this is a very beautiful one. Yeah. And then maybe the next time we can do more specific EFTs on long COVID, on insomnia, on things that are related mind-body, and try to see if we can help people getting a little routine. And voila. I don't know if you wanna say something more, or.
I just want to say that shifting out of this like high achiever, high performing, always getting everything done, kind of shifting away from that towards a different way of being is probably one of the most painful things that you can do, one of the most painful transformations. However, it's worth it, right? When I had my burnout, I mean, you don't recognize yourself anymore in your way of functioning. So yeah.
Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisbeth. And so, yeah, we'll follow this up by a little EFT sequence for anyone, you know, with long COVID, with vaccine, post-vaccine symptoms, you know, but also like it can be anything, someone with a burnout, someone with a depression. It's just about like keeping the spirit and keeping the energy to see through this this difficult period. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.
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 Bye.